Mike Davies sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel tightly. The guilt of his secret affair with Lisa, a younger woman he met at work, was beginning to eat at him. For a year, he had managed to keep the affair hidden from his wife, Jane, but the strain was becoming unbearable. He took a deep breath and glanced at his phone. A message from Lisa flashed on the screen. "When can I see you again?" Mike felt a pang of guilt and quickly put the phone away. He had to focus on his family, especially now that Jane had some important news to share. When Mike walked into the house, Jane greeted him with a radiant smile. "Mike, I have something to tell you," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Mike's heart sank as he braced himself for whatever was coming next. Jane took his hand and led him to the living room. "I'm pregnant," she announced, tears of joy streaming down her face. "We're going to have a baby." Mike forced a smile, trying to match her enthusiasm, but inside, he felt a wave of panic. As Jane talked about their future and the baby, Mike's mind wandered to Lisa. How could he continue the affair now that Jane was pregnant? The weight of his deception pressed heavily on him, but he couldn't bring himself to end things with Lisa just yet. That night, Mike lay in bed next to Jane, unable to sleep. He stared at the ceiling, thinking about the mess he had created. He knew he had to make a decision, but he felt trapped between his responsibilities and his desires. In the following weeks, Mike struggled to maintain his double life. He spent his days at work, sneaking away to meet Lisa whenever he could. In the evenings, he came home to Jane, who was blissfully unaware of his betrayal. She had no idea just who she was sharing a house with. Jane's pregnancy progressed, and she began to make plans for their growing family. Mike felt a growing sense of dread with each passing day, knowing that his secret couldn't stay hidden forever. As Jane's pregnancy advanced, the pressure on Mike intensified. He found it harder to concentrate at work, and his performance began to suffer. His boss noticed the change and called him into the office one day. "Is everything okay, Mike? You don't seem like yourself lately," Mike nodded, forcing a smile. "Just a lot going on at home," he replied, hoping his boss wouldn't press further. But the truth was, Mike was barely holding it together, and the walls were closing in on him. One evening, Jane noticed that Mike seemed distant and preoccupied. "Is everything all right?" she asked, concern etched on her face. Mike nodded, but he couldn't meet her eyes. "Just tired," he mumbled, hoping she would drop the subject. Jane didn't push further, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She decided to give Mike some space, hoping that he would eventually open up to her. Lisa grew increasingly frustrated with their secret relationship. She wanted more from Mike and was tired of being the other woman. One day, she confronted him. "Mike, I can't do this anymore. You need to make a choice. It's either me or your wife." Mike was taken aback by Lisa's ultimatum. He had never considered that he might have to make a choice so soon. He promised Lisa that he would figure things out, but inside, he was more conflicted than ever. The strain on Mike's relationship with Jane became more evident. He was often distracted and irritable, and Jane couldn't understand why. She tried to be supportive, but Mike's distant behavior hurt her deeply. One night, as they sat in silence at the dinner table, Jane reached out and took his hand. "Mike, I love you. Whatever is going on, we can get through it together," she said softly. Mike's heart ached at her words, knowing how much he was betraying her trust. Mike found himself spending more time away from home, using work as an excuse to escape the growing tension with Jane. He sought solace in Lisa's company, where he could temporarily forget about his problems and responsibilities. But the more time he spent with Lisa, the more he realized that his escape was only temporary. Sooner or later, he would have to face the consequences of his actions, and the thought filled him with dread. Jane's suspicions grew as Mike's behavior became more erratic. She noticed the late nights, the secretive phone calls, and the emotional distance between them. She tried to confront him several times, but Mike always had an excuse ready. One night, after Mike had been fast asleep in bed, Jane decided to check his phone. What she found confirmed her worst fears. Messages from Lisa, filled with words of love and longing. Jane's heart shattered as she realized the extent of Mike's betrayal. Jane waited for Mike to come home from work the next day, her mind racing with anger and hurt. When he finally walked through the door, she stood there, her arms folded just above her growing baby bump. "Mike, we need to talk," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. At that moment, she was angry, but also very sad. Mike's face went pale. He knew exactly what it was about. He knew the moment of truth had arrived, and there was no escaping it. "Jane, I can explain," he began, but Jane cut him off. Tears streamed down Jane's face as she confronted Mike about the affair. "How could you do this to us, Mike? How could you betray me and our unborn child?" she cried, her voice breaking. Mike hung his head in shame, unable to meet her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Jane. I never meant to hurt you. It just happened," he said weakly, knowing that his words offered little comfort. Tears streamed down Jane's face as she looked at the man she thought she knew. Everything she thought she knew was a lie. Jane's trust in Mike was shattered, and the atmosphere in the house became tense and strained. She struggled to come to terms with his betrayal, and Mike felt the weight of his actions more than ever. Despite their efforts to move past the affair, the damage had been done. Jane couldn't forget the pain Mike had caused, and Mike couldn't forgive himself for hurting the woman he loved. Everything was a huge mess, and Mike didn't know how he was going to get out of it. He had dug this hole for himself. As Jane's due date approached, the tension between her and Mike reached a breaking point. They argued constantly, unable to find common ground. Jane's health began to suffer, and her doctor warned her about the stress affecting the baby. How had their lives changed so drastically in an instant? Mike knew he had to make a decision. He couldn't continue to put Jane and their unborn child through this turmoil. It was time to face the truths and take responsibility for his actions. One evening, Mike sat down with Jane, his heart heavy with regret. "Jane, I need to tell you something," he began, his voice shaking. Jane looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "I'm leaving," Mike said, the words tasting bitter in his mouth. "I can't keep doing this to you and the baby. I need to leave so you can have a chance to heal and move on." Jane's face crumpled, and she burst into tears, the reality of his words hitting her like a blow. Even though Mike had betrayed her, she hoped that they could work through their issues for the sake of the baby. After Mike's announcement, Jane was left to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. She leaned on her family and friends for support, determined to create a stable environment for her baby. Mike moved out, but the guilt and regret followed him everywhere. Had he made the right decision to leave his wife and baby? He tried to reach out to Jane, but she needed space to heal. Mike respected her wishes, knowing that his presence would only cause more pain. He focused on his work and tried to rebuild his life, but the emptiness he felt was overwhelming. Jane gave birth to a beautiful baby girl named Sarah. Despite the heartache, she found joy in being a mother and dedicated herself to giving Sarah the best life possible. Her family rallied around her, providing love and support during this challenging time. Mike watched from a distance, receiving updates about Sarah through mutual friends. He longed to be a part of her life, but he knew that he had to earn that right. For now, he focused on becoming a better person, hoping that one day he could make amends. Years passed, and Jane built a new life for herself and Sarah. She found a job she loved, made new friends, and even started dating again. Sarah grew up surrounded by love and support, unaware of the turmoil that had once threatened to tear her family apart. Mike continued to struggle with his guilt, but he found solace in therapy and self-improvement. He knew that he couldn't change the past, but he could work towards a better future. His love for Sarah never wavered, and he dreamed of the day he could be a part of her life. Mike's relationship with Lisa had endured the trials and tribulations of the past 15 years. They had built a life together, moving to a new city and starting afresh. Mike had focused on his career, but the guilt of leaving his daughter, Sarah, always lingered in the back of his mind. The divorce from Jane had been finalized years ago, allowing both of them to move on. Jane found new love with David, a kind and supportive man who treated Sarah as his own. Their small family flourished, creating a nurturing environment for Sarah. Despite his seemingly content life with Lisa, Mike could never shake the feeling of guilt and regret. He often thought about Sarah, wondering how she was growing up and what kind of person she had become. The few photos he had seen of her over the years only intensified his longing to be part of her life. One evening, as he and Lisa sat on their porch, Mike turned to her, his expression somber. "Lisa, I need to try and connect with Sarah. I can't ignore this any longer." Lisa nodded, understanding the depth of his feelings. "I know, Mike. You've been talking about it for years. Maybe it's time." Mike decided to reach out to Jane first, knowing that he needed her support if he was to have any chance of reconnecting with Sarah. He sent a carefully worded email, explaining his desire to be a part of Sarah's life and asking for Jane's help. To his relief, Jane agreed to meet him at a small cafe. Both of them didn't know what to expect from the other. It had been so long since the ex-couple had seen each other in person. However, both of them had moved on and were happy. Mike sat anxiously at a small cafe, waiting for Jane to arrive. When she finally walked in, her expression was guarded. They exchanged awkward pleasantries before getting to the heart of the matter. "Mike, I appreciate that you want to be a part of Sarah's life now," Jane began, her voice steady but firm. "But you need to understand that she doesn't know you. David has been her father in every way that matters." Mike nodded, trying to keep his emotions in check. "I know, Jane. I just want a chance to get to know her, to be there for her in some way." Jane sighed, her expression softening slightly. "I don't think that's a good idea right now. She's a teenager, Mike. She's been through enough, and I'm not going to let you disrupt her life." Mike felt a surge of frustration. "Jane, I'm not trying to disrupt anything. I just want to be a part of her life. Don't you think she deserves to know her biological father?" Jane shook her head. "She deserves stability and love, which she has with David and me. You're a stranger to her, Mike. I can't just let you walk back into her life and expect everything to be okay." The finality in Jane's voice cut through Mike like a knife. He had expected resistance, but the outright refusal was more than he had anticipated. He left the cafe feeling defeated, unsure of what to do next. Despite Jane's refusal, Mike couldn't let go of his desire to connect with Sarah. He sought advice from friends and even reached out to a lawyer, hoping to find a way to establish his parental rights. The legal process was daunting, and the prospect of a custody battle weighed heavily on him. Lisa tried to support him through this difficult time. "Maybe there's another way, Mike. We don't have to go to court. Have you thought about mediation?" Mike nodded. "I have, but Jane is so adamant. I don't know if she'll agree to it." As Mike's efforts to see Sarah intensified, Jane grew increasingly frustrated. One evening, she confronted Mike outside Sarah's school, where he had shown up unannounced. "Mike, you can't keep doing this," Jane hissed, her eyes flashing with anger. "You're confusing her and making things worse." Mike held up his hands defensively. "I just want to talk to her, Jane. I want her to know I'm here for her." Jane's voice trembled with anger and fear. "You had your chance, Mike. You walked away. David has been her father, not you. You need to back off." Feeling cornered, Mike decided to take Lisa's advice and seek mediation. He approached Jane with the proposal, hoping to find a more amicable solution. "Jane, please, let's try mediation," Mike pleaded during a tense phone call. "For Sarah's sake, we can figure out a way for me to be in her life without causing her more pain." Jane was silent for a long time before finally agreeing. "Fine, Mike, we'll try it. But if this disrupts her life, it's over." The mediation sessions were emotionally charged and difficult for both Mike and Jane. They were forced to confront their past and the impact of Mike's departure on their family. The mediator, a calm and patient woman named Linda, guided them through the process. "This is about finding a way forward for Sarah," she reminded them. "It's not about the past or blame. It's about her well-being." Jane remained skeptical, but she agreed to allow Mike limited supervised visits with Sarah. It was a small step, but it was a start. The day of the first supervised visit arrived, and Mike was filled with nervous anticipation. He arrived at the agreed-upon location, a local community center, where Jane and Sarah were already waiting. Sarah looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Mike's smile was warm and sincere, though he could feel the nervous energy bubbling beneath. "Hi, Sarah. It's so nice to meet you." Sarah's reply was barely a whisper. "Hi." Her gaze flickered to the floor, then back to him, uncertainty clouding her young eyes. Everything about this moment felt surreal to her, like stepping into a story she didn't quite understand. The initial meetings were awkward and stilted. Sarah was polite but distant, clearly struggling to process her feelings about Mike's sudden reappearance in her life. But despite Sarah's initial reluctance, Mike remained consistent in his visits, understanding the importance of building trust at her own pace. He showed up for every scheduled meeting, patiently waiting for Sarah to open up. Slowly but surely, Mike began to chip away at the walls Sarah had built around her heart, laying the foundation for a meaningful relationship based on trust and mutual respect. Mike tried to engage her in conversation, asking about her interests and school. He quickly learned that Sarah loved art and was an aspiring painter. Her eyes lit up as she spoke about her passion for creating. Mike felt a surge of admiration for her talent and determination. recognizing a kindred spirit in her creative soul. Determined to nurture her artistic aspirations, he brought her sketchbooks and art supplies, hoping to find common ground. But his behavior only made Jane more upset. Where had Mike been when they needed him the most? This was all rubbing her up the wrong way. During one particularly poignant visit, Mike brought along an old photo album filled with memories from his own past. They flipped through the pages together, sharing stories and laughter. Sarah found herself opening up in ways she never thought possible. The images sparked conversations about their respective childhoods, allowing Sarah to see Mike in a new light. For the first time, she began to glimpse the depth of his character, his vulnerabilities, and his unwavering commitment to being there for her, no matter what. Jane watched these interactions with a mix of hope and doubt. Despite Sarah's growing bond with Mike, her mother couldn't shake the nagging feeling of unease that lingered in the depths of her heart. She saw the effort Mike was making, but she also saw the confusion in Sarah's eyes. She worried that allowing Mike into their lives might disrupt the fragile balance they had worked so hard to maintain. Her fears were compounded by the memories of past hurts, reminders of the pain they had all endured, leaving her torn between her desire for Sarah's happiness and her instinct to protect her. Unable to shake the feeling of dread that gnawed at her insides, Jane confided in David one evening, seeking solace in his steady presence and unwavering support. David listened patiently as Jane poured out her fears and anxieties, his heart aching at the thought of her suffering. "I'm worried, David. What if this confuses her more? What if she starts to resent us for keeping Mike out of her life?" She fretted, her voice tinged with anxiety, her concerns echoing the doubts that had been haunting her. David took her hand, his expression thoughtful. "We have to trust Sarah, Jane. She's strong, and she'll figure out what's best for her. We're here to support her, no matter what," he reassured her. He promised that they would weather this storm together, just as they had done with countless others in the past. His words of encouragement were a hope in the night, a reminder that they were stronger together than apart. With David by her side, Jane found the courage to face her fears head-on, determined to do whatever it took to protect her family from harm. As weeks turned into months, the supervised visits continued. Slowly, Sarah began to open up to Mike, sharing more about her life and her dreams. They even started working on an art project together, a mural for the community center. However, progress was not without setbacks. Sarah had moments of anger and confusion, lashing out at Mike for abandoning her. Each confrontation was a painful reminder of the past, but Mike faced it head-on, determined to make amends. During one visit, as they sat together in comfortable silence, Sarah's facade finally crumbled, revealing the raw emotions that lay buried beneath the surface. Overwhelmed by a tidal wave of grief and longing, she broke down in tears, her heart laid bare for all to see. In that pivotal moment, Mike's true character shone through as he wrapped her in his arms, offering comfort and solace in her darkest hour. Through his unwavering presence and unconditional love, Mike proved himself to be a pillar of strength in Sarah's tumultuous world. The tension between Mike and Jane simmered beneath the surface as Mike's visits with Sarah became more frequent. As they deepened, Jane found herself wrestling with a myriad of conflicting emotions. While Sarah seemed to be adjusting well, Jane struggled with the intrusion into the stable life she had worked so hard to build for her daughter. She couldn't shake the feeling of apprehension that gnawed at her insides, a constant reminder of the wounds that had yet to heal. Despite her best efforts to remain optimistic, Jane couldn't help but worry that history would repeat itself, leaving Sarah heartbroken once more. One evening, after another visit, Jane couldn't hold back her frustration any longer. She asked him to come over. "Mike, we need to talk," she said, her voice tense. Mike looked at her, sensing the brewing storm. "What is it, Jane?" Jane took a deep breath, trying to keep her emotions in check. "You're interrupting her life, Mike. She's confused and it's affecting her. We had a stable routine, and now everything feels chaotic. I'm worried about the impact it's having on her emotional well-being," she explained, her voice tinged with concern and exhaustion, her responsibilities heavy on her shoulders. Mike frowned, feeling defensive. "Jane, I understand your concerns, but Sarah has a right to know her father. I'm trying to build a relationship with her." Jane shook her head, her eyes flashing with anger. "She has a father, David. You've been gone for 15 years, Mike. You can't just waltz back in and expect everything to be fine. Mike's frustration boiled over. I'm not trying to replace David. I just want to be a part of her life. I made mistakes, but I'm here now, trying to make things right. The argument escalated, voices rising and emotions flaring. Unbeknownst to them, Sarah had been listening from the hallway. Unable to bear the tension any longer, she stepped forward, her face pale but determined. Stop it, both of you. Sarah's voice was shaky but resolute. I need to say something. Jane and Mike turned to her, startled by her sudden appearance. Sarah, honey, you don't have to get involved, Jane said, her voice softening. Sarah shook her head. Yes, I do. This is about me, and I need to make my own decision. Sarah took a deep breath, gathering her courage. Mom, I know you're trying to protect me, and I appreciate everything you and David have done for me, but I need to know my dad. I've always had questions, and I deserve answers. Jane looked at her daughter, tears welling in her eyes. I just don't want you to get hurt, Sarah. Sarah stepped closer, her voice trembling. I know, Mom, but I need to figure this out for myself. I want to give him a chance. Mike's heart swelled with hope and gratitude. Thank you, Sarah. I promise I won't let you down. In the following weeks, Sarah and Mike's relationship began to deepen. They spent more time together, working on their art project and talking about their lives. Mike was careful to respect Sarah's boundaries, always mindful of the delicate balance they were trying to achieve. One afternoon, as they worked on the mural at the community center, Sarah paused and looked at Mike. Dad, can I ask you something? Mike said. Down his brush and turned to her. Of course, Sarah. Anything? Sarah took a deep breath. Why did you leave us? I need to understand. Mike felt a lump in his throat. He had anticipated this question, but struggled to find the right words. To be honest, Sarah, I wasn't really happy in my marriage to your mother. I wanted and needed more. I found happiness somewhere else. Your mother is a great person, but I just wasn't living the life that I wanted. My only regret was that I left when she was pregnant with you. I will never forgive myself for that, he said sadly. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. It hurt, you know. Growing up without you? Mike nodded, his own eyes misting. I know, and I'm so sorry for that. I'm here now, and I want to be a part of your life, if you'll let me. Sarah looked at him for a long moment before finally nodding. I want to know you, Dad. I want to understand why things happened the way they did, but I need time. Mike smiled, relief flooding through him. Take all the time you need, Sarah. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. With those words, a new chapter began in their lives. It wasn't easy, and there were still many challenges ahead, but for the first time, they were facing them together. Sarah's words lingered in the air, carrying the weight of a promise yet to be fulfilled. Mike's heart swelled with gratitude at her willingness to embark on this journey with him. He knew that earning her trust and understanding would take time, but he was committed to being there every step of the way. As they navigated the complexities of their evolving relationship, Mike and Sarah found solace in their shared moments of vulnerability and connection. They laughed, they cried, and they grew together, forging a bond that transcended the confines of biology. With each passing day, their relationship deepened, fueled by mutual respect and unconditional love. As the months passed, Sarah's relationship with Mike continued to blossom into something truly special. They shared more about their lives, their dreams, and their fears. Mike became a constant presence in Sarah's life, attending her school events and cheering her on from the sidelines with unwavering pride. Together, they celebrated her victories and supported each other through the challenges. Their continued collaboration on the mural became more than just an art project. It became a symbol of their budding relationship, a testament to the beauty that can emerge from shared experiences and mutual respect. Jane and David supported Sarah's decision, albeit with some reservations. Jane found it difficult to let go of her protective instincts, but seeing Sarah's happiness and growth gradually softened her apprehensions. She realized that Sarah's journey toward reconciliation and understanding was essential for her personal development, and she resolved to stand by her daughter's side, even if it meant relinquishing some control and navigating uncharted territory. In the end, Sarah's happiness became Jane's guiding light, guiding her toward acceptance and the embrace of a new reality filled with hope and healing. Her first Father's Day with Mike brought a mix of emotions for Sarah as she grappled with conflicting feelings of love and loss. Despite her reservations, she accepted Mike's invitation to spend the day with him and Lisa, longing for a sense of connection and belonging. As they gathered around the table, sharing stories and laughter, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope flicker to life in her heart. Surrounded by the warmth of their love, she realized that family wasn't defined by blood, but by the bonds of love that transcended time and space. Their mural project at the community center served as a tangible symbol of Mike and Sarah's growing relationship. Together, they poured their hearts and souls into the creation of a masterpiece that captured the essence of their journey together. Each brushstroke was infused with love, and every color was carefully chosen to reflect the depth of their connection. Their shared experiences forged a bond that would stand the test of time, and when the mural was finally unveiled, it served as a beacon of hope and inspiration for all who beheld its beauty. Together, Jane, David, and Mike worked tirelessly to find a balance that worked for all parties involved. They established clear boundaries and communication channels, ensuring that Sarah felt supported by all three parental figures in her life. Through open and honest dialogue, they addressed any concerns or reservations that arose, fostering an environment of trust and mutual respect. Despite the challenges they faced along the way, Jane remained steadfast in her commitment to putting Sarah's needs above all else, determined to do whatever it took to protect her from harm. Despite their initial reservations, David and Mike found themselves forging an unlikely bond rooted in their shared love for Sarah. As they navigated the complexities of co-parenting, they discovered a newfound respect and admiration for one another. Through their collaborative efforts, they created a more harmonious environment for Sarah, one filled with love, laughter, and unwavering support. With each passing day, their bond grew stronger, a testament to the power of forgiveness, understanding, and the enduring strength of family. Sarah's 16th birthday marked another significant milestone in the family's journey of healing and growth. Jane, David, Mike, and Lisa came together with a shared purpose: to celebrate Sarah's remarkable journey and honor her achievements with a celebration filled with love and joy. They spared no effort in planning a memorable day for Sarah, incorporating elements that reflected her passions and aspirations. From heartfelt speeches to personalized gifts, each gesture was a testament to the love and support that surrounded Sarah on her special day. Laughter and warmth filled the air, creating cherished memories that would be treasured for years to come. During the party, Sarah looked around at her family and felt a sense of belonging. She realized that while her family was unconventional, it was filled with love and support from all sides. She cherished the sacrifices her mother had made for her, recognizing the depth of her love and devotion, and she reveled in the realization that she was fortunate enough to have two fathers in her life. Each of them brought their own unique strengths and perspectives to her journey. In their presence, Sarah found reassurance and gratitude, knowing that she was truly loved and accepted for who she was. With her 16th birthday behind her, Sarah began to look towards the future. She had dreams of going to art school and pursuing a career in painting. Mike was excited to support her in any way he could. As they sat together, discussing her plans, Mike said, "I believe in you, Sarah. You can achieve anything you set your mind to." Sarah smiled, feeling a sense of confidence and support from both her fathers. She had so many people who supported her. She was glad that her parents could move past what had happened to them. She learned that sometimes relationships don't work out, and that's okay. Over time, the bond between Mike and Sarah continued to grow. They found common interests, shared experiences, and built a foundation of trust. Mike was careful not to overstep, always respecting Sarah's relationship with David. However, the two men had developed a close relationship of their own. One day, while they were working on a project together, Sarah looked at Mike and said, "I'm glad you're in my life, Dad." Mike's heart filled with gratitude. "Me too, Sarah. Me too." The family continued to navigate the complexities of their relationships, but they did so with a renewed sense of hope and understanding. They learned to embrace change and support each other through the ups and downs. Jane and Mike maintained a cordial co-parenting relationship, focusing on Sarah's well-being above all else. They attended counseling sessions together to ensure they were on the same page and to address any lingering issues. As Mike's presence in Sarah's life grew, the dynamics within their blended family shifted. David, ever the pillar of strength and support, remained a constant figure in Sarah's life. He encouraged her to embrace her evolving relationship with Mike while nurturing their own unbreakable bond, ensuring that Sarah felt secure and cherished every step of the way. Lisa, too, played an important role in this new chapter. She supported Mike's efforts and built her own connection with Sarah, providing another layer of love and stability and creating a nurturing environment. Bolstered by the unwavering support of her family, Sarah thrived both academically and artistically. She was accepted into a prestigious art school, and her future looked bright. As Sarah embarked on this new chapter of her life, Mike beamed with pride at her achievements. He marveled at her determination and talent, eagerly anticipating the wondrous adventures and opportunities that lay ahead on her journey. With every step she took toward her dreams, Sarah's resilience and ambition inspired all who knew her, reaffirming the boundless potential nestled within her spirit. Gathering her art supplies, Sarah felt a surge of determination coursing through her veins. With each stroke of her brush, she knew she was inching closer to her dreams. Amidst the preparations, Sarah couldn't help but reflect on her family's unwavering support. Their encouragement had been her guiding light, infusing her with the courage to pursue her ambitions no matter what. On the threshold of this new adventure, Sarah felt profound gratitude for the love that had propelled her forward. With a heart full of hope, she took a deep breath, ready to embrace the boundless possibilities that awaited her at art school. With Sarah heading off to college, the family settled into a new rhythm. They continued to support each other, navigating the challenges and joys of life together. Mike, Jane, David, and Lisa found a way to coexist, united by their love for Sarah. As they gathered for a family dinner, Sarah looked around at her parents and smiled. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" Jane nodded, tears of pride in her eyes. "Yes, we have, and we're just getting started." Mike reached across the table, taking Sarah's hand. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. "To new beginnings," everyone echoed, clinking their glasses together. And so they embarked on this new chapter, a family united by love, forgiveness, and the promise of a brighter future.